Okay, so now we're going to do a back jacket lining with no vent. So this will just be like this one here. This is our tailored jacket. So on the outside you can see no vent, and on the inside what we have is a pleat above the waist here, and then it just goes back down to a single seam allowance below the waist. And that pleat is just so that, you know, when you flex around your shoulder blades, that pleat opens up and it doesn't put pressure on the center back seam of the lining. If you were to have this lining goes all the way up to the neckline, which is traditional for men's jackets. If you wanted to do a back neck facing, you'd have to create the back neck facing, take that off the back pattern before you start this process of turning that back pattern then into a back lining. So where are we? So what I've done is I've actually created the back pattern here. So I've added seam allowances around 1 centimetre seam allowances, 6 mil on the neck, and a 4 centimetre hem down the bottom. And that's prepared for the next stage of, for when we do the lining. So this is our lining. Again, the piece is traced out exactly the same as the back jacket, and we've marked our darts in and our drill holes. So what I'm going to do now is add in the pleat down the center back. So the first thing you need to do is just to draw a straight line. You can see there's that little ding there, so it goes out a little bit and then in a little bit. So we just want to straighten that up, and it's hardly any difference at all. But this line here is the new part of our line. So from there, now that we've got a definite flat line there, we want to add 3 centimeters down the back for our pleat. And at the top here, because this goes up and that pleat's going to be folded one way, or, you know, it sits flat here, we actually need the curve of this neckline to be mirrored along this line here, along the fold line. So just pop that, your back neck in place on the fold, the center back on the fold here, and that'll give you the angle that you need. Now about 10 centimeters above the waist notch, that's when you can start blending this back in and make just a nice gentle curve back to our waist notch here. Now one more thing before we add seam allowances, we just need to check that because this line here, the stitch line, the bottom of the lining is going to sew onto the top of the hem, we need to make sure that they're the same measurements. So actually, we can just take off a 1/2 centimetre each end because this doesn't have a seam allowance, but this does. So just check that. So that's 25.4 in full scale. So we'll just measure that against this line here. So, and that is actually, it's the same length, strangely enough. So we don't need to add anything onto that, so we can keep that the same. But yeah, just make sure that, you know, you do check on your particular style, you do check that the hems are the same length because they have to sew onto each other. Okay then, so that's our pattern for our lining complete. Now we just need to add seam allowances. So give yourself, there'll be 1 centimetre seam allowances all the way around. And just 0.6 on the neckline. And I keep saying it, really try to use your grading ruler to help you, with the process of adding the seam allowances. It just takes a lot of practice. Transfer our notches onto the raw edges, or the cut edges of our patterns. And you can see there's really not much difference, except the lining's got this pleat across the back, and the back of the jacket has a full hem. And on the PDF on Blackboard, you've got the cutting instructions here for your back pattern. And that's our back lining without a vent.